"Get out of the car or I'll blow your head off." Those were the exact words a white police officer shouted at a calm, unarmed black man sitting in his own driveway. That man, a respected federal judge on his way home from court. No warrant, no stolen vehicle, just skin color and a badge. In a world where the rule of law is supposed to protect all, this moment felt like Jim Crow with a modern badge. It echoes Malcolm X's warning, "You don't stick a knife in a man's back 9 inches, and pull it out 6 and call it progress." What would have happened if neighbors hadn't filmed the whole thing? If you believe justice isn't optional and silence is complicity, you need to hear what happened next. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit like and subscribe for more stories that challenge what we think we know about power, race, and truth. The sun was setting over Brookridge, one of those southern neighborhoods that looked like it belonged in a Hallmark movie. Tree-lined streets, brick-front homes, American flags gently waving on porches. It was the kind of place where people waved to their neighbors and left their front doors unlocked. But peace in America, especially for a black man in a black luxury car, is always conditional. Judge Elijah Monroe had lived in Brookridge for 15 years. A federal appellate judge and civil rights advocate. He wasn't just respected, he was the bedrock of his community. That evening, he was driving home from court in his black 2021 Lexus ES3. Miles Davis hummed low through the speakers, and the warm spring breeze wafted through the slightly cracked windows. For once, Elijah allowed himself a small exhale. It had been a long week, 3 tense trials, 2 wrongful arrest cases, and a major decision that overturned a corrupt local policy targeting minority-owned businesses. He wasn't thinking about any of that now. Just home, sweet tea, a call to his daughter, and if he was lucky, a full night's rest. But as he turned onto Millstone Avenue, something changed. Red and blue lights flashed in his rearview mirror. A police cruiser. No siren, just lights, fast and aggressive. Elijah checked his speed, 32 in a 35. He had used his signal at the last turn. His tags were current. No erratic driving, no swerving, absolutely nothing to warrant a stop. Still, he flicked on his turn signal and pulled over to the curb, easing the Lexus to a soft stop beneath a sprawling oak tree. He lowered the volume on the music, turned off the engine, and placed both hands firmly on the steering wheel. It was muscle memory, practiced, deliberate, necessary. He stared straight ahead, watching the officer in his side mirror. Female. Stocky build. White. Uniform crisp. She approached with a flashlight in one hand, the other hovering a little too close to the holster on her hip. Her steps were slow, controlled, like she expected trouble. Tap tap. 2 hard raps on the window. Elijah rolled it down with practiced calm. "Good evening, officer. May I ask what this is about?" She didn't return the greeting. Her name tag read, Denton. "License and registration." "Of course," Elijah said, tone even. "I just want to understand why I was stopped." Denton narrowed her eyes. "This vehicle matches a stolen car report. Black Lexus. Georgia plates. You fit the description. Keep your hands where I can see them." Elijah's pulse quickened, but his face didn't betray it. "This is my car. I have the registration and insurance right in the glove compartment." "Then move slowly." "Absolutely." Elijah reached over with deliberate slowness, retrieved his documents, and handed them over. Denton didn't thank him. She snatched the papers and stepped back toward her cruiser. As she inspected the documents under her headlights, another squad car pulled up. The tension thickened. Out stepped a second officer, tall, lanky, maybe early 30s, Latino. The name tag read, Li. He approached cautiously. "What's going on?" "Possible 10-54. Vehicle fits a stolen report," Denton said, without looking up. Lang glanced at Elijah, and then back at Denton. "You sure?" "Black Lexus. Male driver. Georgia plates. That's enough for me." Lang squinted at the paperwork in her hand. "Have you run the plates yet?" "I'm about to," she said curtly, then turned her back. Lang stayed behind, closer to Elijah's window. "Sir, is everything all right?" I'd like to believe it is, Elijah replied calmly. I've cooperated fully. I've given my documentation. I live 3 blocks away, and I'm a federal judge. If there's a legitimate concern, I'm more than willing to clear it up. Lang nodded slowly. Understood. Then Denton returned. Step out of the car, she said flatly. Elijah blinked. Excuse me? Step out. Now. I'm sorry, officer, but have the plates come back yet? She ignored the question. I said out. Now. I don't feel safe doing that. Not until I understand the legal basis for this request. I've given you everything. If you believe the car is stolen, please run the plate. Get out of the car, or I break the window. Lang took a step forward. Carla, hold up. Let's just run the plate. Confirm it. We don't need to escalate this. Denton glared at him, then turned back to Elijah. Without another word, she reached for the door handle. Elijah quickly pressed the lock button. Officer, I'm not refusing to comply. I'm requesting due process. You don't get to make demands, she spat. Now open the door before I call backup. More lights flicked on in nearby homes. Porch doors opened. Neighbors peeked out. Denton wasn't fazed. She stepped back and drew her firearm. The black metal gleamed under the streetlight. Elijah didn't flinch. Out of the vehicle, hands in the air. Lang looked horrified. Carla, put the gun down. But she didn't. The barrel pointed straight at Elijah's face through the glass. Elijah spoke softly, steadily. If you shoot me tonight, Officer Denton, understand this. The world is watching. And it was. Phones had begun to rise. The mother on the porch now had her phone out. A teen across the street was live on Instagram. The elderly couple 2 houses down stood together, whispering. Recording. Dozens of eyes were on them now. Lang stepped forward, slowly moving between the gun and Elijah's window. Denton, that's enough. I said that's enough. Denton hesitated. Then, reluctantly, she lowered her weapon, but only slightly. You're compromising an investigation, she snapped at Lang. No, you're escalating a non-incident into a potential tragedy. The air buzzed with tension. Elijah's hands remained on the wheel. Then, from across the street, a voice rang out, sharp, female, elderly. Elijah Monroe is a federal judge. You've got the wrong man. It was Helen Travers, his neighbor for a decade. Lang turned toward her, then back to Denton. You hear that? You sure you want to keep pushing this? Denton's jaw tightened. I'm running the plates, Lang said, pulling out his radio. No, Denton snapped. I'll do it. No, I don't trust your judgment right now. Lang stepped away, radio in hand. Dispatch, this is Unit 23-7, requesting plate check. Georgia 7HS3PL, Black Lexus ES350. There was a pause. Everyone waited. The crowd had grown. 10, maybe 12 neighbors now, phones up, some whispering, some shouting. Elijah remained perfectly still, dignified, controlled, but the fury in his eyes was unmistakable. Then the radio crackled. Unit 23-7, vehicle is registered to Elijah Monroe. No stolen vehicle reports. Registered address, 142 Willow Grove Drive. Status, clear. Lang looked at Denton. Done. Situation is over. Let's all go home. But Denton wasn't finished. She marched to the back of the Lexus, then popped the trunk. Lang shouted, Carla, what are you doing? She ignored him. A moment later, she emerged holding a black duffel bag. What's this? She asked, her voice mock innocent. Lang's face dropped. That wasn't there when he pulled over. Elijah turned his head slightly. That bag is not mine. Denton unzipped it theatrically. Inside, cash bundles, clear plastic packets of white powder. Gasps from the crowd. Lang took a step back. You've got to be kidding me. You've got drugs and cash in your trunk, Denton announced loudly. Guess we got lucky tonight. No, Elijah said firmly, never raising his voice. You just revealed your hand. Lang looked at her, looked at the bag, then at the stunned crowd. He pulled out his phone and started recording. "I want this on video," he said. The crowd erupted. People shouted, "She planted that. We saw everything. That bag wasn't there before." Lang turned to Elijah. "Sir, stay right where you are." "I'm not moving an inch," Elijah said. And he didn't, because he knew what was coming next. And this time, he wouldn't be alone. Officer Lang's phone trembled slightly in his hand. As he continued filming, his eyes locked on the black duffel bag sitting on the pavement, its contents glaring under the streetlight. Bundles of cash, several plastic packets filled with a white, powdery substance. Elijah Monroe stood stone still next to his Lexus, hands still visible, face unreadable, but there was a storm behind his eyes, controlled but undeniable. "I've never seen that bag before," Elijah said loud enough for the crowd to hear. "It wasn't in my trunk." Officer Carla Denton crossed her arms with smug satisfaction, her gun now holstered, but her posture still combative. "Funny how it just shows up, isn't it?" Lang moved closer, stepping between Elijah and Denton. "Carla, this doesn't look good. The vehicle was clean. The man's a federal judge. This crowd? They've been watching you pulled your weapon. You want to explain how that bag got there?" Denton didn't flinch. "I'm doing my job." "No," Lang said. "You're trying to bury his reputation. And you're doing it in front of the entire neighborhood." The crowd grew louder, phones still raised. Whispers had turned to murmurs and murmurs to vocal anger. "She planted that. We saw it all. That's Judge Monroe. Check the body cam." Lang looked up at the houses. Dozens of neighbors now lined the street. Porch lights were on. Front doors stood open. The block was awake and watching. Just then, the distant sound of sirens broke through the tension, growing louder by the second. A black SUV pulled up behind the patrol cars. No lights, no sirens. It stopped with precision, and out stepped a broad-shouldered black man in a suit. His badge gleamed on his belt. The nameplate on his jacket read, "Captain Derek Hawthorne." He walked briskly toward the scene, scanning every face before stopping in front of Denton and Lang. "Someone want to explain what the hell is going on here?" Hawthorne asked, his voice low but cutting. Lang stepped forward. "Sir, we conducted a stop on Judge Monroe." "Wait, Judge Elijah Monroe?" Hawthorne's head snapped toward Elijah. "Sir, are you all right?" Elijah gave a single nod. "Physically? Yes. Morally? Furious." Hawthorne turned back to Lang. "Explain." Lang didn't hesitate. Initial stop was based on a matching vehicle description. No stolen report. License and registration were valid. Officer Denton escalated without cause, drew her weapon, refused to run the leads at first, then opened the trunk without consent. Bag appeared, duffel full of cash, and what looks like narcotics. "She planted it," someone yelled from the sidewalk. "We have multiple recordings," Lang added, "including my own." Denton tried to interject. "That bag was—" "Be quiet, Carla," Hawthorne snapped. "You've done enough." Elijah finally stepped forward. "Captain Hawthorne, I expect two things tonight: accountability and transparency. I am not walking away from this quietly. I want internal affairs. I want this scene locked down, and I want your word that this will not be swept under the rug." Hawthorne met his gaze. "You have my word, Judge. This is going to be handled by the book." He turned to Lang. "Secure the bag, log it in, and upload your footage immediately to the cloud and the department server. Do not hand it to anyone. Understood?" "Yes, sir." "And Carla," he added coldly, "give me your badge and your weapon. Now." Denton's mouth opened, then closed again. Her confidence had drained from her face. The tension in her jaw gave way to panic. Her hands shook slightly as she removed her badge and sidearm, placing both into Hawthorne's outstretched hand. "You are relieved of duty pending a full investigation," he said. "If this bag is what it looks like, and if what Officer Lang and this community are saying is true, you'll be facings before sunrise." The crowd erupted into applause, not jubilant, but heavy, righteous. They weren't cheering for revenge. They were clapping for the crack of justice finally breaking through. Elijah stepped beside Lang and faced the crowd. "I want to thank each of you," he said, his voice steady, "because tonight I didn't stand here as a judge. I stood here as a black man, falsely accused and threatened, and if it weren't for all of you, your voices, your cameras, your truth, I might not have lived to tell this story." A woman near the front, Helen, his neighbor, wiped away tears. "We saw what they tried to do to you, Judge, and we weren't gonna let it happen." Lang nodded at her, then turned back to Hawthorne. "Sir, should I detain her?" Hawthorne hesitated. "No, not yet. But she doesn't leave the scene. Internal Affairs is already en route. I'll need full statements from everyone, especially from you, Lang. And I want every bystander recording uploaded as evidence." He looked at the crowd. "That includes all of you. If you captured anything, audio, video, timestamps, please, come forward. It all matters." People stepped forward immediately. Phones were offered up. Witnesses gave names. Someone handed Lang a flash drive. Elijah looked back at his car, at the now sealed duffel bag on the pavement, and felt a deep pit in his chest, not because of what had happened, but because of what could have. "This time," he whispered under his breath, "I had a crowd, but how many didn't?" Lang heard him. "Too many, sir, but not tonight." More officers arrived, not to intimidate, but to support the investigation. Yellow tape went up. Denton stood in silence, her world unraveling before her. The smirk was gone, the swagger drained. All that remained was the slow realization that she had underestimated the power of collective truth. As Internal Affairs began questioning, Hawthorne pulled Elijah aside. "We'll go over every inch of this," he promised, "and if there's even a shred of misconduct beyond what I've already seen, I'll personally sign off on the charges. You have my respect, Judge, and now you have my fire." Elijah didn't smile, but he nodded with quiet gratitude. "Then let's make sure this never happens again. Not here, not anywhere." The street remained lit with squad car lights and porch lamps, but the darkness that had threatened to swallow justice was fading. One corner of the system had been forced to look in the mirror, and it didn't like what it saw. As the investigation began in earnest, and Denton sat alone on the curb awaiting formal detainment, Lang walked over to Elijah one last time. "Judge Monroe," he said, extending a hand, "I'm sorry for all of it. If I hadn't stepped in—" "You did," Elijah said, shaking his hand firmly, "and that matters more than you know." Lang exhaled. "I won't forget this night." "Neither will the system," Elijah replied. And with that, the crowd began to disperse, not because they were satisfied, but because they knew the next battle had already begun. The story wouldn't end here. It would travel. It would speak. It would echo in courtrooms, in classrooms, in city halls. A warning, a reckoning, a promise. Justice had not been served completely, but tonight it had been heard. The following morning, the story was everywhere. Local news, national headlines, Twitter threads, Instagram reels. "Federal judge nearly framed by rogue cop." One headline read, "Planting evidence caught on camera," said another. The videos taken by neighbors had gone viral overnight, viewed by millions across the country. It wasn't just a traffic stop anymore. It had become a national flashpoint in the fight for justice and accountability. But for Judge Elijah Monroe, the attention wasn't the goal. The lesson was. By noon that day, he stood at the podium inside the Brookridge Community Center, addressing a packed room filled with neighbors, media, and city officials. The black duffel bag, the same one used in the attempted setup, sat on a table beside him, now empty, a symbol stripped of power but not of meaning. "I'm not here today because of what happened to me," Elijah began, his voice strong, clear. "I'm here because what happened to me could have happened to anyone, and has happened to too many others who didn't have a crowd or a camera to protect them." A hush fell over the room. He continued, "Last night, I wasn't a judge. I wasn't a community leader. I was a target because of the car I drive, the color of my skin, and the assumptions one officer made about what that meant. And if we let that go unchallenged, we're complicit." He paused, scanning the room. "But we didn't let it go." "You didn't." A ripple of nods moved through the audience. Helen Travers, the neighbor who had first recognized him, wiped a tear from her cheek. Officer Lang stood quietly near the back wall, no longer in uniform, but present, tired, yet proud. Elijah laid out a list of demands: mandatory de-escalation and anti-bias training for every officer in the department, community oversight for future investigations, and an independent review board with legal authority. But more than that, he called for a shift in mindset, a culture change where suspicion couldn't be the default when someone looked like him. Later that week, Officer Carla Denton was officially charged with evidence tampering, abuse of authority, and obstruction of justice. Her body cam footage revealed damning details, audio of her telling another officer she would make this stick, no matter what. The footage sealed her fate. Captain Hawthorne held a press conference announcing a full department audit. Internal Affairs launched a comprehensive review of Denton's past cases. Several were reopened. One was already overturned. But Elijah didn't stop there. He began working with civil rights groups, using his platform to promote legislation that would increase transparency in law enforcement stops, require automatic release of dash and body cam footage within 48 hours, and penalize false reporting with real consequences. His face appeared not just in newspapers, but on Capitol Hill, where he testified before a bipartisan committee. His words were broadcast live. "If my position and title couldn't protect me from racial profiling and a near-deadly misuse of power, then what hope does the average citizen have? This isn't about defunding the police. It's about redefining what justice looks like when the law is applied fairly to everyone." By the end of the month, change had already begun to take root. The Brookridge Police Department launched the Watch the Watchers program, allowing local civilians to sit in on misconduct reviews. Anonymous tip lines were funded. Officer Lang was promoted to liaison officer for community relations, his first initiative building bridges between neighborhoods and beat cops. But the greatest change was quieter. It lived in the way neighbors now waved to each other with intention, the way children asked questions about fairness, race, and truth, the way silence no longer felt acceptable in the face of abuse. Elijah Monroe, still on the bench, returned to court with a new clarity, not just about the law, but about the stakes of every judgment he passed down, and the weight of every life it impacted. Because justice isn't just served in courtrooms. Sometimes it begins at a curb, under flashing lights, with nothing but a calm voice, an unwavering heart, and a neighborhood that refuses to look away.